You asked for it, and you got it. Today's deep dive, well, we're tackling a giant Isaac Newton.
Yeah.
We're going full deep dive on his
Yeah.
Wikipedia page, beyond the app, beyond the textbook, really trying to understand the man behind the science.
Right, boy. I'm intrigued. This should be fun.
So you probably think you know Newton, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Gravity, apples, the whole shebang.
Exactly. But get this, picture this. Christmas Day, 1642. This tiny baby is born so small he could fit in a quart mug.
A quart mug. That's awfully small.
Yeah, that tiny baby was Isaac Newton.
Wow. Talk about exceeding expectations.
Right. Talk about a legacy. But here's the thing about Newton. He wasn't exactly Mr. Congeniality.
Oh, tell me more.
For one, he had a pretty rocky relationship with his stepdad.
Always a good start.
And then there was his, how do I put this, legendary rivalry with Robert Hooke.
Ah, yes. Hooke, another scientific heavyweight of the time. It's like the clash of the titans.
Exactly. And if that wasn't enough drama for you, Newton also went through this period of intense, mental strain. Some historians even call it a nervous breakdown.
Wow. Sounds like he had a lot going on.
Yeah, and get this. He never married, poured all his passion into his work, dabbled in things like alchemy.
Alchemy. Now that's interesting. You've piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, he even had some pretty radical religious beliefs for his time.
See, this is what makes studying these historical figures so fascinating. They weren't just these one-dimensional figures in textbooks. They had complex lives with passions, quirks, contradictions.
It really makes you wonder, was this just a quirky genius or was there something more?
Exactly. And those contradictions often offer the most valuable insights. They help us understand the context of their work, their motivations, and ultimately, their humanity.
Okay, so we've got this complex, contradictory figure. Where do we even begin to unpack his legacy? All right, so let's start with something we can all relate to, gravity.
Ah, gravity, the force that keeps us grounded.
Literally. But seriously, we've all heard that story about Newton and the apple, right?
Yeah, the apple. It's kind of become symbolic, hasn't it?
Totally. But it makes you wonder how many of us would see an apple fall and think, I bet there's a universal law governing that.
Right. It speaks to Newton's genius that this seemingly mundane observation sparked such a profound scientific breakthrough.
So from apple to equation, how do we get from that falling fruit to the law of universal gravitation? Fill us in.
Well, Newton realized that the force that pulled that apple to the ground wasn't limited to apples or even to Earth.
Wait, so he was thinking bigger, like way bigger.
Exactly. He proposed that every object in the universe, from planets to pebbles, attracts every other object with a force that depends on their masses and the distance between them.
So me and that bagel I had for breakfast were actually exerting a gravitational pull on each other.
Technically, yes. Though the force is incredibly small because your masses are, well, relatively speaking, tiny compared to something like the Earth or the Sun.
Okay, that makes sense. But still mind-blowing. It's like he looked up at the stars and thought, I think I can explain how all that works.
It's a testament to his incredible intellect and curiosity. He wasn't content with just observing. He wanted to understand the underlying principles, the very fabric of the universe.
And that's where his law of universal gravitation comes in, right? It's not just about things falling down anymore. It's about how everything in the cosmos is interconnected.
Precisely. It explained why planets orbit the sun in predictable patterns, why we have tides, even how to calculate the trajectories of comets.
So this one law, it's like the key to understanding the movements of the entire universe.
You could say that. It was a groundbreaking theory that unified celestial and terrestrial mechanics, showing that the same force governs the falling of an apple and the motion of the moon around Earth.
That's incredible. And to think it all started with an apple and a curious mind. But Newton's Wikipedia page, it mentions more than just gravity, right? He revolutionized mathematics too, didn't he?
He did indeed. And this is where we delve into the world of calculus. Ready for another brain teaser?
Calculus. It's
I'll
like
get it.
the word that launches 1,000 panic students, right?
It's definitely got a reputation. But what's fascinating is that Newton pretty much invented this whole new area of math because he needed it.
Wait, so he was just like, need to understand how things change? I'll whip up some calculus real quick.
Aha! It sounds a lot more casual when you put it that way, but it really highlights how brilliant he was. Before Newton, the math tools to describe motion, especially things changing speed or direction, they just weren't there.
So it was gravity and those planetary movements that pushed him to it?
Exactly. He needed a way to calculate those rates of change. Not just straight lines, but curves, arcs, you name it.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Because Newton wasn't the only one who claimed to have invented calculus.
That's right, folks. We've got a good old-fashioned scientific rivalry on our hands. You're talking about Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, right? One of the great debates in scientific history, who truly invented calculus first.
It's like a math throwdown for the ages.
Yeah.
So who gets the credit? Whose name is on the invention patent?
Well, there's no patent office for calculus, unfortunately, but nowadays, both Newton and D. Leibniz are credited. It seems they were both onto similar ideas around the same time, just with different approaches, different ways of writing it all down, too.
This makes you wonder, had they had Twitter back then, could they have just collaborated and avoided centuries of debate?
Now, there's a thought. But regardless of who takes the crown, calculus, it's everywhere. Engineering, economics, even those algorithms deciding what shows up on your social media feeds.
It's amazing to think that something so fundamental to our modern world came from one man's quest to understand the universe. Okay, so we've got gravity, we've got calculus. Anything else this guy managed to revolutionize in his spare time?
Well, according to his Wikipedia page, there's still optics. Newton, he was obsessed with light and color, even built the first reflecting telescope.
Hold on, reflecting what now?
Before Newton, telescopes used lenses to magnify. Problem is, lenses, they distort the colors, make things blurry. Newton's reflecting telescope, it used mirrors instead, much clearer images.
Talk about thinking outside the box, or in this case, the lens.
And that's not all. He's the one who cracked the code on white light actually being all the colors of the rainbow combined.
Wait, so every time I see a rainbow, I'm witnessing a Newtonian discovery.
Pretty much. He used prisms to show how white light splits into its different colors. Totally changed how we understand light and color.
It's amazing to think that one person could have such a profound impact on so many different fields. I mean, Newton really was a one-man revolution.
That's the legacy of Isaac Newton. He wasn't just brilliant, he was curious. He saw the extraordinary in the ordinary, and then he went after it. It's an inspiring reminder that there are still mysteries to uncover, connections to make, even in the world we think we know.
He really makes you want to grab an apple, a prism, and just start exploring, doesn't he? And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Remember, there's a universe of knowledge waiting to be discovered, often just a Wikipedia page away. So keep asking those curious questions, and who knows what you might find.